Hello and welcome to another edition of the Steelers Depot live stream. I am Alex Kozora. Joining me, as always, is Bryan. Our last live stream before Week 1, now just 6 days away before the Pittsburgh Steelers and Atlanta Falcons kick off in Atlanta to begin the 2024 season. Here to the top of the hour for these last-second questions, and so appreciate you guys being here. And Bryan is here as well. Dave, how you doing?
Happy Monday to everybody. We got some college football tonight. Dino Tomlin in Boston College versus Florida State. I think you said you're looking forward to Dino catching a touchdown pass, so you can write that up.
Yeah, waiting for that one. We'll see if it happens. Let me get the site here on screen so you guys can check out the top articles of the day and the news of the day. Pittsburgh announcing their captains. Ben's podcast returns. We have some of the relevant commentary there. But as always, answering your questions. If you want a guarantee of your question being asked and answered by Dave and myself, you can send a super chat. No obligation to do so. We appreciate it all the same, and you'll move to the front of the line. So for you guys here, if you guys could like the stream, would appreciate that to bring in more of Steelers Nation. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and, of course, check out the site on screen, SteelersDepot.com. We'll start things off here with Lumberzack94, who asks, "Hey fellas, the first real game is finally here. Can you guys give me a realistic contract for Pat Freiermuth if you had your druthers?" Of course, to use the Dave Bryan term. Dave, weigh in here on a number that seems realistic for Freiermuth.
Let's pull up a post I did way back on August 31st, 2023. Man, it seems like yesterday I wrote this, and it's already a year old. And this was after TJ Hawkinson signed his deal. And I believe at that time, a few weeks prior to that, Cole Kmet had signed his 4-year extension that totaled $50 million. I'm paging down on the bottom of this here, and I could see Freiermuth's valuation next offseason being somewhere in the neighborhood of 13.25 and 14 million per year. Now, remember, this was written on August 31st, 2023. And if you look at the tight end market right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Cole Kmet is 8th overall in APY at 12.5. I do not expect Freiermuth to eclipse Mark Andrews at 14 million. Mark Andrews is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th overall in the rankings. So somewhere maybe ahead of Cole Kmet, maybe even ahead of David Njoku, who's at 13.6875, and maybe even ahead of Evan Ingram at 13.75. But long story short, I'm willing to bet it comes in somewhere between Cole Kmet at 12.5 and Mark Andrews at 14 million. That's not much has changed in the tight end market since I wrote that, So, and once again, it would be a big win, I think, on Freiermuth's part if he was to eclipse the Mark Andrews number at 14 million, but that's where I'm counting on it coming in, somewhere in that range, which gives me a gap about what, $1.5 million.
Yeah, I think that sounds accurate. It's a number that you've talked about, as you just referenced, for now literally a year. And as you mentioned as well, the tight end market really has not changed. All the tight ends got paid last year, so it's really kind of kept things status quo market-wise. Some people would be unhappy with Freiermuth getting the extension. There's one comment that says he's not worth the money. I've heard that refrain a lot over the last couple of days since Ayuk's been settled and kind of turned our attention to the internal candidates and Freiermuth and Hayward, etc. But I'd support a deal, and that sounds like the likely number.
And it feels like they've got to spend the cash to at least get him locked up here in the next few days here. So time is ticking, and I don't know, is that going to happen while we're on this live stream tonight, or
10 seconds after, probably?
Yeah, but the rule of 51 goes away on Thursday. You would tend to think that this thing's going to happen here pretty soon.
Would make a lot of sense. As you said, the self-imposed deadline, clock is ticking, would be basically when the team takes off for Atlanta on Saturday afternoon. Thank you guys to those in the chat right now asking questions. We got Connor, Austin, Mike, Daniel Barry, Josh Miller, Carl, Russ, etc. So appreciate you guys and everyone else observing and listening, being here in the live stream. Mike Adesso, our friend, says, happy game week. Let's play over-under on sacks in 2024. When he's got a list of them here, Dave will kind of go pretty rapid fire through them one name at a time. Over-under TJ Watt, 20 sacks.
Man, looking at his numbers in here, all of them are pretty good over-unders, I think, overall. And I think he says they total out at 55, I guess his numbers do here. Yeah, these are going to be 20 so hard to get though, isn't it? You know, I know TJ Watt has, if anybody can do that, it's him. Man, if I'm betting that, I would just have to, it feels like I would have to take the under just slightly.
I'll take the over. I won't bet against TJ, but 20 is a solid number to start with there. Alex Highsmith, 12, over under 12.
Yeah, that's another good one there. It feels like he definitely should be in the double-digit category there.
I'll take the under, slightly under.
I'll take the over there.
Okay. Cam Hayward.
By one.
Cam Hayward, 8, over under.
Yeah, these are some tough numbers here to think about.
Mike making us work.
I'll take the under by 1, 7. I'll take 7.
I still defend Cam probably more than 95% of Steelers Nation, but I'll take the under historically at 35, 8 sacks. Doesn't happen too often. I think he'll be in that 6 to 7 type range, so I'm with you, Dave. Nick Herbig, 5, over under.
I don't know. He's going to steal some people's sacks this year, I think.
And he can get them in bunches. He's
going to continue to have us eating crow from draft profiles and all. Man, he's just so quick off the edge, and probably going to get a little bit more playing time on top of that. I don't think he hits double digits by any stretch there. Not that it's, you don't know how injuries are going to happen, but I'll take the over 5 on Herbig.
Yeah, that one's really tough. I mean, just the playing time aspect. I almost want to push. I'm going to take the slight under at like 4.5, but happy to be wrong and certainly could be there. Keanu Benton also at 5, over under.
Man, that's exactly the number I have him getting too. So, oh man, I'll take the under begrudgingly.
I'll take the over slightly. I'll say big second year, because he got so much pressure last year, just couldn't finish some of those plays. And there's a little Tuitt aspect where Tuitt year 1 sack like Benton had last year, and year 2. Tuitt had 6.5 sacks, and so I'm gonna go the over slightly on that. Larry Ogunjobi also at 5 to complete the trifecta 5.
Man, nothing should make the fan base happier if he was to hit that 5 or over. He looked great during the preseason. That's the healthiest he's looked in a Steelers uniform in all the time during the preseason. I'm still going to have to take the under on that, though.
I'm with you, slightly under, but it has been his best summer since coming to Pittsburgh by far. And then quickly, the linebackers, Landon Roberts, 3, Patrick Queen, 2, Peyton Wilson, 2.
I'll have to take the under on Roberts. Man, these are some tough numbers. I'll take the under on Queen, and I'll take the under on Wilson. I don't think there's going to be a lot there left to clean up for those guys unless they come on blitzes or whatnot.
I'm with you 2/3 of the way. Under on Roberts, under on Wilson. I'll take the over on Queen. Going to play every single snap, more opportunity. He blitzed a lot in Baltimore, was effective there. He'll clean up a couple of the pressures. I'll take the over, say he gets 2.5 or 3. So
yeah, those are some tough numbers to look at.
Yeah. Russ Obenstein, guys, do you think we beat the Falcons and defense dominates? He's asking, will the defense dominate Atlanta? I don't think it's going to be domination. I have not made a prediction. We'll do so for the Friday episode of the podcast, but this is going to be a tight game, Dave.
It's going to be a tight game. I agree. I expect it to be a closely contested fourth quarter game.
Connor Norris says, who are your favorite candidates for ads at corner receiver? Obviously, realistic options. At this point, I'm wondering if they're going to add anybody. I was confident they would add at least one veteran member for the secondary, but here on Monday, the team practiced. they would have signed somebody, I thought somebody would have come in by now. Miles Boykin got released by the Giants, but I'm not sure if that's even going to happen.
Yeah, it's not feeling like anybody's coming. I would have bet there would have been at least one, maybe even two, at cornerback there. And you would think with the team off on Tuesday and then resuming on Wednesday and having a practice today, they would have had somebody in there. So it doesn't feel like anybody's coming.
They did work out Jamal Agnew, who's a receiver, but really primarily a returner. Probably more Rolodex updated list kind of thing, but interesting guy with a return background. So we'll see if anything happens there with Agnew. Austin says, if you guys were the Steelers GM and you're in contention at the trade deadline, would you trade for a better wide receiver too like Sutton, Metcalf, if their teams are out of contention and willing to sell? I'd ask. I think I quipped at some point, you don't stop looking for receiver help until the trade deadline, until you literally, you're not allowed to look any further. So, yeah, I certainly would be doing that if I'm in that position and those teams are not in position to make a playoff run.
Yeah, you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't do something like that. And obviously the other team has to agree to it as well, too. It does maybe feel like if Seattle's out of this thing, come that time and the Steelers are still in it, might they? Because I think Metcalf still has another year after this,
They never restructured his contract, did they?
Right. I'll look real quick, but I don't think they did. So I would, if the Steelers are still really much in this, and maybe if the Seattle's not, that would probably be the first, because obviously you got the connection between Russ and Metcalf, and if you're looking at let's see, Metcalf is under contract for past this year into 2025. He's scheduled to make, it looks like, $13 million. If you got at the halfway point, that would be like acquiring, about $6.5 million of salary. What you could do if you traded for him, assuming you had enough cap space at the time, is you would just turn around and restructure that thing real quick and drop his cap number a little bit more down and push a little bit of that proration on into 2025. So that would be a name that would, like Alex said, I'd be on the phone.
Yeah, it depends on the asking price, obviously, but certainly if I'm not getting that production I need from the receiver group, let's assume that for a second in Austin's question, where it's, you're getting production from Pickens and Freiermuth and the run game looks strong, but opposite of Pickens, not finding that guy, certainly I'd be looking pretty heavily. Got a very generous $10 super chat that just came in from Travis Sanders. Maybe a new name, but we appreciate the super chat. Dave and Alex, Drake London finished with just over 100 targets last season with better quarterback play, a better defense. Shouldn't we at the very least expect 125 plus targets for Pickens? We need explosives. A good question there from Travis. Pickens, I think, had how many targets last year? Top of my head, you can look that up, Dave. Was it under 100 or was he at 100? I can't remember the number.
He was at 106 last year, and he caught 63 of them.
With him being a clear number one in this offense, 125, it's a lot, but it feels like a realistic target.
It does, and you got to figure going to get some where he's going to need to make that money at is between that 5 to 10 yard past the line of scrimmage area. Get some more targets in there and some more catches in there instead of just being the guy that you try to throw the football to, 12 yards down the field or more.
Yeah, and I think he's done well to be a more well-rounded receiver, greatly improve his yak last year, and showed more versatility, more slot alignment, for example, in training camp. So if you had to play more over-under on 125 targets for Pickens this year, where are you coming in at on that, Dave?
Say again?
125 targets for Pickens this year. Would you take the over or the under on that number?
I'd still probably take, let's see, 125 divided by 17. Yeah, that's another tough number. I'd just be inclined until I see it and thinking how they're going to run this football to take the under.
Yeah, I'll take, that one's really tough. I'll take the slight under as well, just because he's not that true X that really gets as many of those short targets. He's going to get more and have a big season, I believe, but yeah, I think right in that 120 range is probably going to be his number. But that's a good question, Travis.
If he obviously you'd like to see his catch percentage go up a little bit. you know,
Which it should if you're running shorter routes.
right, which it should. So, you know, let's say he got 115 targets or 120 targets even, and you catch a higher percentage of those, and a few of those down the field, a few of those get some good yak on. I mean, it feels like he should once again the fact that he busted 1,000 yards last year, you would think he'd easily be able to bust it this year, right?
Yeah, it went over 1,100 last year.
Yeah.
So that's certainly the expectation, 4 digits in 2024. More over-under fun from Mike Adesso asking over-under 25 touchdowns for Russell Wilson. He's had good discussion on Russ and our quarterback ranking of him during the podcast as well.
What did he go? 26
last year.
And 6 interceptions
I think 8.
Eight, and he sat out the last few games there. I mean, man, if he stays healthy and he's getting the job done, what was the over/under?
25.
Man, they're going to be down. Hopefully, they're down in that low red zone. And even though we want to see some red zone passing touchdowns this year, they're probably going to be more apt to try to jam that thing in on the ground. I'll take the under that number just slightly.
I think I mentioned this number before, and so I'm going to hedge here. Literally, I'm going to push. I think 25 is the spot-on number, and it's a little poetic because that's the number of touchdown passes Pittsburgh has thrown the last 2 seasons combined, 12 and 13. So I think there's some justice to get that in one season with Russell Wilson. So my prediction is going to be right at 25.
Okay.
All right, Josh Miller, can you qualify the level of concern over Broderick looking at his preseason measured against his rookie season? What's your confidence level in him for 2024? I just worry about the health aspect of it. I know he's talked about the braces and impacting him, and he's playing through it, and he's tough and saying all the right things. You respect him for that, but I just worry about a guy that has not been healthy, and then, of course, being moved around some. I thought he played well in the finale against Detroit, albeit against their backups, but I have some reservations, unfortunately.
Yeah, we got to see even better than the way he played in that finale.
Yeah, and obviously seeing tougher competition, which you'll see in Matthew Judon in Week 1. But good question, and be certainly a name to watch, and I assume he'll be starting at right tackle in this one. Is that kind of your expectation right now, Dave?
I don't know if they didn't do a good job of proofing the photos on Steelers.com. I think we got us a nice little pre-week 1 Easter egg there. I wouldn't count on. That's one thing I always go to as soon as those photos hit daily after practice, see if they show something that maybe they shouldn't. And if you're to read in between the lines and use common sense, it looks like the starting offensive line is going to be Dan Moore at left tackle, Spencer Anderson at left guard, Zach Frazier at center, obviously James Daniels at right guard, and Broderick Jones at right tackle.
Yeah, we'll see from Tomlin, or hear from Tomlin tomorrow to get analysis and update on Troy Fautanu, and we'll get injury reports on Wednesday. But even if Fautanu is healthy from all the time missed, really pushing it to get out there for Sunday's game. Infinity says, good evening, Dave and Alex. Can you guys think of another year with this much national media negativity directed a Steelers team before a season begins? I can't recall it ever being this bad. As I like to say, ever is a long time. It got attention because it was a quarterback competition, at least in the eyes of the national media, and that always kind of gets some headlines and talked about more. So that's probably one reason why you heard more about Pittsburgh, because they were just spoken about more because of the openness of the quarterback situation with 2 big-time names and Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. That's even more gaudy from a kind of clicks perspective than 2022 when it's Trubisky and Pickett, not as exciting sounding. So I think that's the reason. Can you think of other negative years?
Well, here's the thing too with it. More and more people have podcasts now. More and more of these shows, and we're able to we see these more regularly come through all of our feeds and all like that more and more. So there's more to look at and more to easily find and more to write about on top of it. So percentage wise, I mean, look, even though the Steelers came out of preseason playing the way they did last year and all, there was still, I mean, there's obviously been a lot of negativity, but I think as Alex hit on, a lot, they were one of the last teams to declare their quarterback. And even though Alex and I never thought there was really a real quarterback competition, most of the major media framed it that way up until the moment Mike Tomlin said that Russell Wilson is going to be the quarterback, and then even after that, the national media immediately shift gears from who's going to be the starting quarterback to how long will it take for the Steelers to hook Russell Wilson. That's now the topic, seemingly. So there's only one way to kind of quiet that stuff, and that's win, right?
Right.
And but yeah, look, there's been. And you look at the wide receiver room, and obviously the ad nauseum discussion about Brandon Ayuk going all the way back to March, and finally that's come to an end. And Alex and I have talked, man, we think this wide receiver is one player short in the room, and it's understandable why the tone has been that way.
Yeah, and we'll just have to let it play out. That negativity.
Plus, these guys have learned over the years too, man. You talk good or bad about the Steelers, and it's going to get play.
For sure. And some of that's just the nature of, sports media, where you take one side, I take the other side, and that kind of stuff. And Mark Schlereth seems to hate Russell Wilson, so that's 80% of the negativity. But yeah, it doesn't really matter much. It has felt heavier this year, but as you said, you made good points about the nature of sports media expanding and our coverage expanding, and the eyes on the quarterback situation this year all probably playing factors. Got a question from our friend, and he's giving me some help here on the pronunciation. He says it's pronounced The Verge. I'm just going to call him The Verge, and if I'm misinterpreting the comment here, I apologize in advance. But he says, would you guys start Falcons at guard? I would not. I think it's a terrible idea. Not that you're suggesting and advocating for that, but I think anyone suggesting and doing that would really be mistaken.
Yeah, who was that? Was it Dulac that came out and said had Sayamalo's injury been season ending or longer, that they were thinking that just look here's the thing about Fautano coming out. And I didn't dive in as deep as him as I did some of those other tackles and all, because I kind of wondered if he'd still be on the board at the time. Second is there were more concerns about his overall length, even though he makes up for it with the arm length. Now, there are some good breakdowns out there. I think who was the one that Mike Martz did one right around draft time, had a nice video breakdown. I said, man, this guy, if he doesn't work out at tackle, he's going to make a great guard. I don't disagree with that, but to do that right out of the chute with him, no, I don't think that would happen. Do I think he's got the tool set if things don't go well at tackle to maybe kick inside? Yeah, I do. But not right out of chute right now. No.
Yeah, maybe he has those tools, and I get the nature of the question because there were many that projected him as a guard or even center. I think Dane Brugler was all about him potentially going inside the center, and with, say, Malu's injury, but it would be peak Pittsburgh to take a college left tackle, play him at right tackle in the summer, in the spring, and then move him to left guard a week before the season begins. I mean, just too much moving and shaking, keep guys in spots, and I think Fautanu once said, I'm not playing guard, which if Pittsburgh asked him, of course he would, but he's not want to be a guard. Let's see him at tackle, and I just would not. I think it's too risky, too damaging to try to keep moving and shaking these guys around.
Yeah, I agree.
Got a couple of super chats in, pair of $5 ones from Quality Colas, who says, keep up the great work. Dave and Alex, much love. Appreciate you always being here, KK. We thank you for
brother.
The super chat and attending. Be sure to like this stream as well. Would appreciate that. DTG108 with another $5 super chat says, over under on number of tweets to fire Arthur Smith if the first possession is a 3 and out. Does that limit exist, Dave? I'm not sure if it does.
I don't know. I'm afraid to put that into Tracker and Twitter and all. Look, it'll be status quo. One bad series, and everybody be able to a lot of people be wanting to run them out of town. So
the national pastime here in Pittsburgh. And The Verge says correct pronunciation, so I've said that wrong many times over, but thank you for correcting me, and I will try to keep that in mind going forward. All right, back up here to our chat group. Let me find the next question I was going to hit. Mark Collins with a comment, not a question, but I'll read it off all the same. He says, Russell Wilson will not make it through the game against Atlanta. Facts. He's dropping facts on that, so we'll see if that's right or wrong, Mark. Tim Chase says starting nickel corner. I think it'll be by committee. I think Beanie Bishop on rundowns and Deshaun Elliott kicking down from strong safety to the slot in passing situations.
That makes sense from what we've seen and where the roster's at right now.
Another committee approach and another kind of messy situation. Also a Pittsburgh pastime. All right, let's find where I was going to be at here. Russ Obenstein thinks Russell Wilson will get 35 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and 4,200 yards. Sign me up for that, Russ.
Oh boy, if he gets that,
yeah,
boy,
for sure. The Verge says, would you go for Hopkins in Tennessee? They're not selling right now, but I think the question would be around trade time. If Tennessee was out of it, I could see that happening.
Yeah, I guess if you got to that, look, you just, here's the thing, you got to pick up the phone, period, and you got to see what's out there.
Yeah.
And if that's your best option, you think it can improve your room at the time right before the trade deadline, then you make every call.
Absolutely. Tim Chase, why let the Washington receiver get away? Can't imagine they wanted to trade to Philly. I assume that's referring to Jahan Dotson. I like Dotson coming out of Penn State. I think his game's pretty similar to Roman Wilson. And yeah, he's more experienced. Wilson had the injury, but he's, should be healthy sooner than later. I wasn't losing too much sleep, and spending a third-round pick on Jahan Dotson just seemed too high for me.
Yeah, I agree. It felt like duplication, too.
Yeah. So I'm not too choked up about it. But you're right, Tim. Seeing Washington trade within the division was surprising. Maybe that says what they think about Jahan Dotson, obviously with the new regime there and Adam Peters and Dan Quinn. The Verge says is drafting left tackles in round 1 2 years in a row and then moving them both to right tackle a good decision. It's a decision. All right. Yeah, there's certainly some critiques to be had about how Pittsburgh has handled their young offensive line in the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, if you have 2 right tackles, you don't have 1 left tackle, right?
It's the updated saying of the quarterback phrase.
Look, I mean, who would have thought we're coming out of preseason talking about not even talking about Dan Moore Jr. The fact that, I mean, all the negativity has gone to, Fautano being banged up and the problems Broderick Jones. I mean, Dan Moore Jr. looks like, who was the right tackle for the Browns all those years?
Right tackle? I mean, Joe Thomas?
Yeah, he looks like Joe Thomas right now compared to I'm being facetious there or being funny, but look, at some point Fautano is going to see the field this year, sooner rather than later. It feels like, and at that point, you think Broderick Jones is going to go over to left tackle.
I don't know. It's been counting out Dan Moore for 2 off seasons, and he's looking like he's going to be that starting left tackle for. Obviously, he was last year and will be poised to be this year. So,
what does it say if you can't get to that point by the middle of the season?
I mean, Broderick was not going to be in that position until Chukwuma Okorafor apparently started chirping about the coaching staff after that Jags loss. I mean, had that not occurred, how much does Jones play last year? So I don't know if Fautanu is going to get in there or not. I mean, injury obviously can take care of that, but that may be the thing that has to happen. So we'll see. It's just jump ball right now, but I'm just kind of focused on week 1, and you would expect it to be Moore and Jones. Jared Mayak says, thanks for the Q&A. Also, great video breakdown on some of Arthur Smith's calls, Alex. Check it out if you haven't. Thank you, Jared. Appreciate that. Do you think Pat's preseason usage was intentionally restricted? No, I don't think it was that. I mean, obviously the starters didn't play a ton. I think when you get in the game and you're calling plays and quarterbacks going through progression, sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. It's a small sample size. So I don't think there was any intentionality about not using Freiermuth that much.
Say again?
He's asking, do you think Pat Freiermuth's preseason usage was intentionally restricted, him not doing much this summer.
I'm not worried about that. Look, if he gets a contract we think he's going to get here in a little bit, and the way this offense is set to run and all like that, I drafted Pat Freiermuth as tight end number 1 for me in a fantasy draft last night. I got him a little bit later and all because I if he stays healthy and all, he should be a strong focal point of this passing game.
Yeah, I'm excited and encouraged. I had the article yesterday. He stood up 40% of his snaps this preseason. He's going to be used more like a wide receiver and get him out there in space, not doing as much inline stuff to minimize some of the blocking woes and weaknesses he might have in his game. So I think it'll be a good year for Pat Freiermuth, assuming good health, which unfortunately has been the issue in his career.
If he stays healthy, he should end up the second leading pass catcher on this team behind Pickens, I think.
Yeah, and likely set a career high in receptions. I think that sits at, 63 right now. I think he'll pass that if he's playing all 17 games. We got 96 in the chat. I'd love to hit triple digits before our live stream ends. If you can hit the like button, hopefully bring in some more people, would appreciate that. We got Ali Howard in here, so it's a familiar name in these live streams. We thank you guys for hanging out with Dave and I until 8 p.m. Eastern time. Russ says, we have 8 draft picks and maybe 2 comp picks, so would you give the number 1 pick for Devontae Adams or Christian Kirk? I would. It's a lot of hypotheticals there for a first-round pick, not for Kirk. Adams, I think you can probably get him for less. I'd certainly try to. So it would just depend on a lot of factors there, Russ.
Yeah, I don't know if I give up a number 1. How old's Devontae Adams now?
He's getting up there, relatively speaking. He's probably around 30. I don't know his age top of my head. Should be around
32.
32, wow.
32, yeah. There's no way. I mean, he's still a talented receiver.
Sure.
Don't get me wrong and all, but I'm not giving up for that. No.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
And definitely not for Kirk.
Yeah, definitely not for Kirk. Same. Micah does so, saying random but cool. I just saw now on NFL Network the Cardinal Lake Sun Quentin was named the captain for the Rams, which is very cool. Kudos.
Yeah,
to
we
him.
profiled him. We thought, ahead of that draft and all, we definitely thought, and for obvious reasons too, the bloodlines and all like that, thought that might be somebody the Steelers, considered.
Yeah, so kudos to him. He's staying out west, went to UCLA, and is now doing it for the Rams. John Pennington, our friend, says, hello, Dave and Alex. I assume it just says and, but I'll put myself in there. Are you guys worried about the 2 tackles being able to protect Wilson and give him time to throw the ball? I just worry about the health of the O-line in general, with all the injuries they've had and guys trying to get back and Jones trying to play through it, and you lose Sayamalu for roughly a month. It's just a lot of, again, moving and shaking that, has not been typical for Pittsburgh the last 2 years. It's hard to build up continuity and kind of get guys working together and chemistry to build over time, and you're worried about a slow start, which is what the O-line has been the last 2 years, where by midseason they pick it up, but Pittsburgh can't wait until week 8, week 9 for them to find their groove. So, yeah, there is some concern there. No question about that.
Ball out quick.
Which has not been Wilson's game. Another factor.
Ball out quick here, and we, obviously it seems to be trending towards Spencer Anderson getting first shot at left guard to open up the season. He played 16 snaps. Now, look, I thought overall, just, flipping and flopping as much as he did in the preseason, except for that one quick sack that he got beat on, I think, at right tackle. I thought Anderson represented himself well during the preseason. But here's the thing. He played 16 snaps at left guard during the preseason, and during his entire college career, at Maryland, he played 40, what did I tell you, 43?
43, yes.
43 snaps at left guard. So supposedly in an interview today, he says he likes, at first he didn't think he'd like being inside, but he likes being kind of inside that phone booth and all. But, man, already, not even here to week 1, he got some mix and matching and a lot of questions about that offensive line.
Sure. Probably likes it because you don't have to block TJ Watt like he did at right tackle last summer. That's always a positive there. But yeah,
big week 1 game for him, because if he answers the bell, at least that gives you some sense of security until Sayamalu gets back. If he doesn't play well at all, you really have to, even out of the first game, you have to wonder, man, do we need to go ahead and get Mason, take the wrap off of Mason McCormick and get him in there at left guard, a position that he's obviously a lot more experienced at.
And both men, I thought, had good summers. I was really impressed by McCormick, but Anderson while he didn't get many left guard reps inside stadiums, he had a ton during training camp, so I think he has the reps there. In stadium is different, obviously, but big matchup against Grady Jarrett, the veteran two-time Pro Bowler in week number 1 for Spencer Anderson and his interior offensive line, including a rookie in Zach Frazier. Luis Cervantes says, what will be the Steelers' record going into the bye week? We'll do record predictions for Friday. I don't have anything off the top of my head right now. Hopefully above 500, because that back half, I always take those things with grains of salt, because you never know how the NFL season works out. But I imagine the North will be competitive. I imagine that the Chiefs and Eagles will be pretty good this year. So you better be above 500. I would say that.
Yeah, better win especially some of them first 5 games, right? Man.
Yeah, but that's not easy either. There's no easy part of the schedule. There's easier, and that's the front half, but it's still some tough matchups. Got 107 people here, so appreciate you guys if you hit the like button to get us over triple digits, and hopefully this will continue to grow as the regular season begins, officially starting on Sunday. Pittsburgh, Toddy 86. Other than a couple of good games from Mason, do you envision any scenario in which the quarterback situation is worse than last year? Thanks. Any scenario in which the quarterback situation is worse than what last year brought, Dave?
You never say never, but boy, it was bad. It was bad last year, man. It's just so hard, especially with the schemes and that seem competent that Arthur Smith's bringing over, and it's hard to see it being that bad. Now, look, someone mentioned the line at sacks and all. Don't forget that Russell Wilson and Justin Fields combined for 100 sacks last year, and you certainly can't do that. I mean, you can't have these guys getting sacked 4, 5, 6 times a game. It's so hard to overcome that, especially when you're reliant on as much on the running game as this team is going to be. I thought overall, at least in the film last year, I thought Russell Wilson did a good job protecting the football overall. Justin Fields not as well, especially with some of that decision making. So it's really hard to imagine the quarterbacking, regardless of who ends up in there, being as bad as it was last year.
I expect it to be better. It must be better. Man, we're in trouble if it's not. But the angle I was going to take was what you said. There might be more negativity when you're more aggressive. You're not playing hyper-conservative football. Pittsburgh's one mission from Kenny Pickett last year was just to protect the football, don't lose the game. And that got them to be competitive and keep scores down, rely on their defense, all that. But for Pittsburgh to really take the next step, you got to be the aggressor and not win everything 10-7, But that's going to probably come with more negativity and sacks. And like you said, Wilson's been good from a turnover perspective. He's had some fumble issues as well. I think 22 fumbles the last 2-3 years. That's going to be reduced as well, but you probably will see more turnovers. But you hope, and the upshot is that you have more big plays and more passing touchdowns and just more success through the air to cancel that out and hopefully beyond that. So that could be the downside, more negativity, but all in the pursuit of some big-time plays and points.
Here's the thing. Regular season last year, this team registered just in net yards per passing attempt somehow of 5.6. Thank you, Mason Rudolph, I guess, in those last few games there. Better talking about how the quarterback play is expected to be better. I think most people would expect it to be better. How much more better? To me, if you're looking at just a raw statistic like your adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat, man, it better be at least 6.2 on the low side to really make a difference in this.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% there, Dave, and we'll be watching that number closely. And how many games do you think you need to see before you get a good sample size, like 4, 5?
Well, the bad thing about that stat is it, one game early in the season can sure. hugely impact it. And I usually don't get into tracking what teams are trending towards playoffs and all like that until we got about 7 games underneath our belt. So
around the bye.
Yeah, so getting closer to the bye. Now, look, it will be easy to cherry pick by game and say, oh, look at this. They had a miserable X game here, whereas the other, let's say 3 or 4 first games, you've got a number of like 6.5 or something like that.
Right.
You'll be able to look at it that way, but just looking at it as a whole number, it could just be, once again, it could be heavily impacted by one bat. Before you go out there, you get sacked 5 times, 6 times in a game, and you throw 2 interceptions, and you don't throw any interceptions. It's going to be hard to counteract that one game number for several weeks.
Yeah, it can be an outlier. It can skew the numbers, and it may not be clear in representing the entire body of work. So that's why bye week makes sense.
And look, for those of you that follow me on Twitter, and I'm sure we'll be talking on a podcast as well, too, I'll be letting everybody know what the team quarterback adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat is every week after every game.
Yeah, for sure. Tim Chase, $5 super chat, says concerns about outside corner play. It's lower. Dante Jackson, he had a good summer. I think it'll be a little up and down during the regular season. If he can just avoid being a liability, then I can kind of take that. If he can be average and Porter can be the number one who shadows. Porter will take his lumps when you're facing number ones routinely. It's never going to be clean, never going to be easy, always a battle, always tested. But I'm relatively speaking comfortable with the outside corners right now. The depth is a concern, but the starters I think are sound.
Well, here's what you hope happens. The age-old Russian coverage go hand in hand. And, man, when you look at the front 7 of this defense, this is the thing that's going to hopefully keep this team in a lot of ball games here and give them an opportunity to score 22, 23 points a game to win ball games on top of it there. So because of the front 7, assuming these guys can stay healthy, and obviously you got Minka in the back end, hopefully he can stay on the field and all like that, the better your rush is, it goes more hand in hand with your coverage.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's go back to the questions. About 15 minutes left. Tim Chase, ready to spend $28 million on receiver. Now, no upgrades before kickoff. Still have holes. Guess a comment on the Ayuk situation that fell through. Yeah, I mean, we'll just see. Ayuk
doesn't feel like they're going to have trouble spending that kind of money on wide receiver in the next few days.
Right. But, Ayuk was the big prize. Like, we knew either you're getting that guy or there really wasn't an alternative once we kind of got into training camp. So Pittsburgh will have to manage internally, which is going to be a good scheme with Pickens and the others, and a sound running game, play action off of that, offensive line that stays healthy and progresses, quarterback play that elevates itself from where it's been. Those things will now be all the more critical.
And we had a good conversation about cash and wide receiver rooms on the podcast this morning. If some of you caught it, or if you didn't, might want to tune in for that.
Simon,
because you look at the Chiefs wide receiver room, last year, and on paper, it wasn't all that. Now they do have that guy named Patrick Mahomes over there that makes a huge difference for sure. So quarterback play is. Can really make a difference with a wide receiver room like the Steelers have put together right now.
Simon Winstanley, what's a realistic stat line for Pickens this year? I imagine every team we face will double team. Adams seems like a clear trade option for Pittsburgh this year, so back on the Devontae Adams thought. Yeah, we'll discuss that if and when the time comes. That's not going to be an out-of-the-gate type of thing. Yeah, Pickens will get the attention, but Smith has done well to change alignments and use stacks and bunches to free him up. But yeah, I wrote today that the pressure's really on Arthur Smith to creatively free up Pickens, because he knows the attention defense will be paying attention to him and can't let them take away Pickens that easily. A stat line kind of mentioned this. I mean, I don't know, I'm thinking 85 catches, 100 or 1,000.
1,300.
Yeah, 1,200, 1,300 yards, and I think touchdowns could be down a little bit in the Arthur Smith kind of spread the love system. I'll say, 6 or so touchdowns. I'll have an article later this week on some stat predictions, but I'm kind of roughly in that ballpark.
Yeah, that sounds fair, what you just kind of laid out there. And I get the infatuation with Devontae Adams. I think he's a fine player, but you got to remember his age here. And even if they were to trade him 8 games into the season, looks like his base is 16.890. So, if you traded for that, you probably have to be able to afford half of that against the cap. and I'm not sure they would be in a position to even do that. I mean, they normally like to go into the season with around $5 or $6 million in cap space.
Mm-hmm.
Could you get the Raiders to maybe eat a little bit more than that? It probably depends on what you have to trade away.
Yeah.
And he's under contract for 2025. It feels a lot messier and less likely to go that route.
But we'll see. We'll see where things stand, 6-7 weeks into the year. Infinity with a good question. What does a successful season look like for Roman Wilson? How would you define a successful rookie campaign for Wilson, Dave?
Getting on the field for numerous amount of games starting as quickly as possible. One. Number two, man, if he could eclipse 25 catches, I think that would be, especially with him being behind the 8 ball to start with here, all the time that he missed. If he hit 25 catches for 12 yards per catch, what does that equate to?
300 yards. I'm ballpark in my head here. I don't have a calculator on
maybe maybe 1 or 2 touchdowns. To me, that people should probably be ecstatic if he hit that.
Yeah, I think you're spot on for missing all the time. I mean, he missed basically the entire summer. He got 4 plays into a padded practice, and then he was done in 7 shots and hasn't, practiced since. So, getting healthy, getting cleared, getting a helmet, those are all good starting spots for him just to kind of get back at catching that moving train and then actually doing something with it. I think 25, 30 receptions for the numbers you laid out would be good for Wilson considering how far behind he started.
Right.
All right, about 15 minutes left. We'll go through questions and get to as many as Dave and I can. William Bryan, maybe a long-lost cousin or brother or something. William Bryan says, what would be your guys' best guess to be the inactive list on Sunday? Dave, you love your inactive posts whenever the final injury report comes out. What do you think things sit right now?
Feels like Kyle Allen will be one. And look, we don't know what situation when the injury report, how many elevations are going to be, but let's just assume that they go into the game with just 53 players.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like Kyle Allen will be one of them. It feels like Logan Lee will be one of them. It feels like Roman Wilson will be one of them. Feels like Sayamalu will be one of them. That's 4. And who would be
another
5th?
Defensive lineman? They're at 8 right now, assuming no other IR or anything.
Yeah, it could be Loudermilk.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, too. We'll have to see if any other moves get made here. Somebody had asked, I don't know if I got to the question or if I passed it, Brian, I know it asked, were you more surprised to see 8 defensive linemen or 3 running backs? It was definitely the defensive linemen.
Definitely defensive lineman numbers.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound like Lee is hurt,
Yeah, I mean, he missed the finale, but nothing that could send him to IR like we speculated about. If that move would have happened, I thought it would have occurred today when they practiced. So they're carrying 8, which is as heavy as I can ever remember this team carrying defensive linemen.
Be interesting to see with Miles Boykin getting cut loose from the Giants practice squad today, what happens there. But they could have had him before he signed with their practice squad.
Signed Skowronek. So I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if the punt team is terrible week 1, and if he's still out there, then maybe you make a change. But I think Pittsburgh's optimistic, and the preseason did not look successful in that regard, but hopefully their optimism rings true. All right, next question comes from Christopher11. Hey, fellas, great show. If you were the Falcons head coach, would you be worried about playing Pittsburgh week 1, and why? Yeah, I think it's always a tough challenge. I mean, the environment's going to be tough because, the Steelers fans are going to really pack that place and not make it a true home opener for Atlanta, but a team with a strong and stout defense and a lot of newness to evaluate as well in terms of the quarterback, and how much they use fields and not having a good feel for that. Yeah, Pittsburgh's always a tough out.
Yeah, look, and you got a veteran quarterback coming off an injury that still probably not as much time as they'd like to have seen him in that offense this summer. And you just got the new coaching staff and the the mechanics that go on in game of making sure you get the proper personnel and the play calling in and stuff. And obviously going to be a lot of Steeler fans there. So I can guarantee you that Raheem Morris is not looking at this as no gimme. That's for sure. So it is a tough matchup. It's a tough matchup for both teams, really.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a close game. I've been shouting that since that we knew that Atlanta would be the initial opponent. Mike saying it's helped. They've practiced a ton without Malu all preseason. That is fair. At least Anderson has a bunch of first-team reps. Malu was as rested as any Steeler was this summer, and so that is, I guess, a silver lining to his injury. He also asks, Mike does, will we have opposing teams' writers on weekly again? We intend to. That is certainly our goal there, Mike. Justin Watson, not a big fan of Van Jefferson, talking about the poor quarterback rating and the poor metrics, and I get that, and I would ideally want Jefferson to be a number 3 and not a number 2. But last year, was a difficult year getting traded over midseason in Atlanta, which was a problematic passing game. So I'm willing to give some grace there, but I understand, that Jefferson, just because he had a good summer, which he did, to his credit, does not mean and guarantee that he's going to have a great regular season.
Right, agreed.
All right, let's see what else we have here. John Pennington, Dave and Alex, what are your biggest concerns about Sunday's game, the O-line or the secondary? Which are you more concerned about, Dave, O-line or secondary?
Oh, the Steelers O-line for sure.
Me too. I don't want to, hand wave away the Falcons passing game, but there's still really no true number 2. I mean, there's Mooney, who's a vertical threat, right? But Pittsburgh's healthier in the secondary. There's no big slot receiver concern right now. For the Falcons. We'll see if there'll be more 11 personnel heavy. I imagine they will be, going from Smith to the Zach Robinson coached offense. But yeah, the health of the O-line, the question marks there, facing Judon, Grady Jarrett, etc. That's going to determine a lot about this game.
And look, Kirk Cousins is not the most mobile guy in the world either. And we've talked this front 7 up and how it better be the strength. They ought to be able to get after Kirk Cousins in this game, which should help the coverage.
Yeah, that'll definitely play a factor. And you imagine the Falcons will try to get the ball out pretty quick with Cousins' first game back. And you wonder, not that it matters for us, but if Cousins struggles, how quickly will the Michael Penix chance start out there for the Falcons nation? All right, The Verge says, do you think Dante Jackson moves inside on passing downs? I've seen no evidence of that. He's been an outside corner basically his entire career, so I'm not expecting that, The Verge.
Yeah, me either.
Let's see. 900 Juice says Fields gets 20% of the snaps. Secret weapon, two-headed monster. Must prepare for both quarterback 1 and quarterback 1B. Yeah, 20% feels too high there. 900 Juice.
Yeah, barring injury, because look, even taking it off of let's say average offensive plays in the season around 1,000, right? Yeah,
maybe a little bit more in a 17-game season, but yeah, 1,000's a good easy number to work off of.
All right. Well, what's 20%? That's 200 snaps, barring injury or barring Russell Wilson getting hooked. That feels, 200 divided by 17. That's a lot of snaps.
10 per game, which I think feels high. Now injuries may impact things, obviously, but that's not the nature of the question.
Right, and obviously, if Russ gets hooked, but if Russ stays a starter, it feels like trying to get Fields 200 snaps is rich.
Mm-hmm. And as a very, very minor point to this Falcons game, it does start the Fields 51% of the snaps watch in terms of what that pick that Pittsburgh sent Chicago becomes. Will it remain a 6th-round pick in 2025, or if Fields plays 51% of the snaps, it'll become a 4th-round pick next year. So clock will start on that. Just a small note to keep in mind in case there was an injury or quarterback change later in the season. Obviously, Fields won't get that number if he's in his, wildcat or packaged role. People call it slash, like he's the next slash. Like slash was called, like Cordell was called slash because he played different positions. It was quarterback slash receiver slash, like Fields is going to be a quarterback even in these package situations. So it's a grind my gears moment, but just to clarify that's kind of driven me up a wall. Fields is not slash in that literal slash sense.
Right.
Anyway, just wanted to get that off my chest. I've not told anyone that so far. Travis Sanders, Dave and Alex, do you expect running back touches to be a near 50-50 even split? It feels like Warren needs to be featured in this offense alongside Najee and Pickens. I think it'll be similar to last year, probably 60-40 in Harris's favor. Arthur Smith can be a bit more unpredictable. You may see more of a hot hand, more game plan dependent. May change a little bit per game, but I think it'll be very similar to last year, Travis.
Yeah, I agree as well, too. And even though it sounds like Warren's doing well coming back from this hamstring injury, I can't imagine they're going to throw him out there for 45 snaps against or even 30 snaps against the Falcons. So Najee's, if Najee stays healthy again, I expect him to get well over 58% of the snaps, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think the snap count could be similar because Warren's going to be the third down guy, which is not always lend itself to touches, but it is, of course, snaps. That's going to be closer to 50-50, but if you want actual touches, I think it's more 60-40 in Harris's favor, carrying the ball on first and second down.
Correct.
I do think Warren could have more goal line work this year. I think that's something that Smith likes to utilize, mix people in. Warren's got leverage and power and finish, and I think he could be utilized down near the goal line more than his first 2 years in the NFL. That could be one difference. Regal Bloodline, Jamar Chase to the Steelers for Alex Highsmith. You heard it first from me. So, Regal Bloodline, he's calling a shot. There's no dog avatar in his photo, but we'll take it, and if that is true, we'll all circle back to Regal Bloodline.
Yeah, I'll be floored if that happens.
C. Bizzle, our friend, says the trade deadline got pushed back this year, didn't it? It did. It's now post-week 9, correct? And that's a Steelers proposed rule that got accepted by the NFL owners in the competition committee or whatever board selected that. Right, it's week 9 after is the trade deadline this year. Right, Dave?
Oh, we got it on the site somewhere.
Somewhere. The Tuesday after, I want to say week 9, somebody can probably chime in the comments, but it did get pushed back, to answer your question, C. Bizzle, by 1 week. Let's see what else we have here. Any other questions? Any takeaways from week 1 of college football? Sure seems like quarterback play all around was better than anticipated. That's from Mike Adesso. I just enjoyed it casually. I watched my Idaho Vandals give Oregon a heck of a fight. Valiant effort by them. Cam Ward from Miami looked really good. That's my one takeaway.
The NFL trade deadline will now take place following the Tuesday after week 9 games.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you for checking that. Any college football takeaways, Dave?
That Travis Hunter something. Whew.
Yeah, 3 touchdowns. How about the receiver from Arizona? Was at McMillan. I mean, he went off too.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of that game that night as well too. Yeah, not any. Look, I obviously this time of year I watch whatever college football I can, but I'm not. I'm doing other things Steelers related. So come get me in about 5 or 6 weeks.
And then after the season, Dave and I always hit the draft stuff and the college scene pretty intensely. Time for a couple more questions. We'll go through as many as possible. St. Eltra, how can the Browns get away with clearing that much cap and paying Watson? Will it bite them in the arse? His words on that. Yeah, they just did a big cap restructure on Watson, correct?
Yeah, but that seems to have been the long-running plan with him anyway. Since they signed him to every time at this year to restructure him to keep pushing that money forward. Now, at some point, the dead money is going to come due on him because his final years continue to balloon up. But obviously the cap number every year escalates and all. But at some point it will come home to roost against them. But we've seen these teams getting more and more comfortable with taking these gigantic dead money hits these days, and pulling the Band-Aid off and getting it over with in one season and then moving on.
Yeah, seeing that now with Russell Wilson, and a rising cap gives teams confidence to kick those cans down the road because they're bigger cans to kick into. Shaheem Smith says, are we really confident in this D-line? Hayward, the aging vet, I like Benton, but everyone else seems like a possible. He says, yeah, I get that depth. I don't want to get too head over heels for the depth. It's, competent, but there's maybe not that rising star. It's not Lowry. It's not Loudermilk. I don't, Leal's been promising and improved, but I don't think he's ever going to be that, replacement 1-for-1 for Cam Hayward. But the starters look good. You just hope for good health and have some decent run defense as the backups go.
Look, it's obviously bolstered by those 3 starters. You need Cam Hayward to stay healthy and on the field. You need Keanu Benton to take that next jump, which by everything we've seen so far this preseason, he's right on course to do that. And then you need your best season to date out of Larry Ogunjobi. You need 2022 Larry Ogunjobi before he went down with that injury. And once again, Larry Ogunjobi looked the best that I've seen him in a Pittsburgh uniform this preseason. Now, it was only preseason, but he looks like obviously if he doesn't live up to what we think he can do, or if any of those three guys go down and you get into that depth, that's where the question's going to be for sure.
Yeah, but I'm confident in Hayward's ability to bounce back and be close to what he is at his peak. Not all the way there, but an 80% version of that. That's 6 to 7 sacks with really solid run defense. I think is reasonably what you can expect from him. Benton should work in sub packages more. The team should have more confidence there, which will help with the pass rush overall. And if Ogunjobi just be consistent, he's just even in his down years, he's shown flashes, but he's got to be more consistent. Hopefully, the health will allow him to do that. So, yeah, I think the overall strength of the whole front seven, not just the D line, but the entire front seven, is the strength of this whole team right now.
Real quick, jump back to Deshaun Watson real quick.
Mm-hmm.
After restructuring him this year, his cap number is still $27.9 million. His cap numbers in 2025 and 2026 have jumped to $72.935 million cap number for 2025, 2026. If they were to cut him next year before June 1st, which obviously they would end up making him a post June 1st, if they had to cut bait with Deshaun Watson after this season, they would surely designate him a post June 1st cap. But if they weren't, the dead money regardless would be almost $100 million.
Oh
99.799. Now, here's the thing is his contract does void in 2027. So even if he plays this whole thing out right now, he's going to have a dead money hit in 2027 of $26.864 million.
Yeah, by then it'll be probably less than 10% of the cap. But I mean,
Right.
And he's also just not played well. They've not gotten return on investment. He's been hurt and not been effective when he's been healthy. So it's a huge year for Deshaun Watson.
Sure is.
All right, let's see if anything else that we have here. 900 Juice says, Stewart is the reason I'm a Steelers fan today. And Justin Watson says, Brandon Johnson needs a chance. The eye test was as surprising as the metrics. Not saying he's a hidden gem, but is at least viable. Yeah, Johnson made plays last year. Knows Russell Wilson, was coached by Zach Azzani. Injuries happen. He might get the call-up.
Look, probably just from attrition and the way stuff happens, you're probably going to see Skoranek or Johnson get some snaps at some point this year.
I agree. All right, we'll leave on this. Russ Obenstein says he's got a prediction. I think our defense has 6 to 8 sacks, 2 strip fumbles, and 2 interceptions. What a day that would be. Russ has big expectations for week 1, and I sure hope you're right. Yeah.
Sign me up.
All right, we're going to wrap things up. Appreciate you guys being here. Good turnout. Of course, next time we talk to you guys, we'll be in full swing in the regular season, and hopefully good things happening for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So thank you guys for hanging out with us, liking, subscribing, all the super chats we got. Ton of those tonight. Really grateful and appreciative of that. And Dave, thank you for being here as always as well.
Thank you for moderating the way you moderate. Some really good questions from the chat. Always enjoy that. Really educated group that we have that follow along. We're very appreciative of that for sure. So peace and love, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
There'll be an archive version of this on Steelers Depot in just a bit, so just one last reminder to like, subscribe, and follow the site SteelersDepot.com, especially off the Falcons game. We'll have immediate analysis and reaction and film rooms throughout the week and on the channel. So thank you guys so much for being here, for listening and asking your questions, and we'll talk to you soon.